Okay, right, we'll try this one. Let's see whether or not that works. I am hoping it does. Okay, guys, let me know when the sound comes through. Yep, okay, it's there. Good. Right, let's go back to that. And when my mic collapsed, I was beginning the recording saying that my mic boom collapsed, and it must have knocked the wire or something like that. But we're back in it, so we're all good. It's been a pretty crap last 4 days. That's what I've tried to tell you 3 times in a row now. But we finally can listen to me say that. And it's not just been cryptocurrency, it's not just been Bitcoin, and it's certainly not just been altcoins. Traditional markets have struggled as well. Friday, I appreciate that there was the Bybit hack, but you know what? That shouldn't have affected the NASDAQ. The NASDAQ went down regardless. We've had Trump talking about tariffs, which is, basically saying they're back on, which is not helping the market where we're going. But ultimately, we have seen a bit of, well, not a bit, quite a bit of selling pressure across the boards. And whilst normally what we've seen for the last 2 months is altcoins selling off and Bitcoin, selling a little bit, but not too bad. But actually, Bitcoin's been dumping nearly as bad as the rest of the crypto market. So it has been an interesting and a bit of a difficult last few days. I think what little sentiment was left in the market, positive sentiment last week, has been eviscerated over the last 24 hours. I don't think sentiment has really been this low since we found out about what FTX had been doing. So an interesting time for sentiment to fall off the cliff. But as we're going to talk about tonight, there's actually opportunity there if you're brave enough to take it. If your convictions are still there, there is plenty of opportunity out there. So let's just dive straight in. Apologies for the sound at the beginning. If you do have any questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. I didn't get any questions on the sort of advanced spreadsheet, so no worries if not. I'll probably pose a few to chat myself today, but let's dive straight in. I thought we'd start with the bubble map. Do you know what? Last few minutes, it's recovered slightly. This was a lot worse, but we can still kind of get a feel that we're talking sort of high single figures, double figures, generally across the board, but we are seeing a few greens on the day, which wasn't quite the case earlier on. I think the ones that have really hit hardest so far, probably it's BGB, which is Bybit's BitGet token. Aave struggled, Tel at 15, Ray at 16, Tau even at 12% today. ENS is struggling. And so, a fairly red day. We saw that yesterday as well. And when we actually start to have a look at some of the charts, we kind of get a real picture for the situation that we're finding ourselves in. So we're on the 3-day time frame. We're going to look at the top chart at the moment. These white lines are kind of what I've had on for a while. The Bitcoin one was the Gandalf level we've been talking about for a few weeks. And previously, that's held very well. And we do have a day and a half or so left on this 3-day candle. So if it wicks back up, we'll class that one as a victory in the Gandalf line held, because we've seen it wick through before. But as it currently stands at the moment, we've broken through that. We've broken through 90K. We've broken through 89, 88. We've even been down as low as 86 in the past couple of hours. And it really has been a bit of a beating for Bitcoin. We'll have a look at sort of price falls percentage-wise a little bit later on. But where does that put us with some of the other ones? I do have to enlarge Bitcoin dominance because my head's in the way. Bitcoin dominance is kind of maintaining that 61%. Now, earlier on today, it actually did get above 62%. But as some of these altcoins have started to recover, we've seen that that's fallen away. But for me at the moment, it's still sitting pretty strong right now. And if anything, all else, it looks like Bitcoin, if you're going to be in a crypto asset, it's probably the asset to be in. And whilst we have ranged in and around that 61 level for the best part of 2 weeks, and you could argue there's 2 big wicks at the moment. Maybe there's some hope for a mini alt season around the corner. But this, when you actually just have a look at how it's trending, it's still just trending upwards right now. So I'm not ruling out a further increase. Maybe even as high as the top of this wick, sort of 64 level. We'll have to wait and see on that one. We'll have a look at Bitcoin dominance a little bit later on, and the reflection of what that does and the impact that we've seen across the altcoin market is still reflected here. So that head and shoulders, the Kobo off it, Nothing new from what we talked about last week. But we're starting to see now, whereas before we were sitting around about 880, 900 billion, we wicked as far down today as 770 billion. We have managed to get back across the 800 billion. But right now, there doesn't really seem to be any let up with where altcoins are currently sitting. And if Bitcoin dominance does continue to climb up, then unfortunately, this is likely to fall further. Now, I appreciate that if the overall market cap goes up, then fair enough. But as we're going to talk about a little bit later on, where is this injection of cash? It feels at the moment that what we're really doing is recycling not what little, because we used to have $3 trillion in the market, but what we had within there. So, hey there, Mo. Good to see you. I didn't see you on the weekend. Yeah, but we did have a cuddle this weekend, which was good to catch up with everyone. So, happy to see everyone there. I think the videos have been edited at the moment, and they'll kind of be drip fed over the next couple of days. But yeah, so just look out for those if you weren't there. And then we get on to BitTensor, and BitTensor's been, I added this line today, but this thicker line at the top was the line that goes all the way back for 2 years. And what was interesting is, even though we had that really strong move up last week, and I kind of was like, I need to get back in, but this was the level I was waiting for. And we closed back on it again. And so I held off, we've fallen back down. And what I've done is I've drawn this bottom line. And it kind of seems to be playing that range quite nicely. Sorry to hear that, Mo. Hope you're feeling better now. At least my dulcet tones will help a recovery. But yeah, so we're kind of just within that range. I have actually put some buys out for Tau, which I'll get onto in a little bit as we go into Tau in more detail. But we can kind of see it's just been working that range quite nicely. We've hit the bottom of it, and as I said, for people that have, the conviction to buy when fear is high, these normally play off quite well, even if short-lived. So I do want to just cover a little bit of news, and one of the ones, and I'll go through these quickly because they've got nothing necessarily to do with price action, but interesting nonetheless. This came out yesterday, the day before, something like that. Some research company has actually undertaken some research. And whilst we've been looking at ETFs and institutional purchases of spot Bitcoin as like the mecca, the holy grail for credibility, actually this article is suggesting that's not necessarily the case. Less than 50% of all Bitcoin that has been bought through the ETFs are for long-term holdings. And actually what the article goes on to say is that companies like BlackRock, et al., investment firms, they're utilizing the ETFs to sort of take advantage of, micro movements in the price, and that really these aren't long-term holds. Now, it'd be interesting to see how this data was collected, because as we know, BlackRock is buying Bitcoin like there is no tomorrow. So, how much of it they're actually trading, we'll have to wait and see. Whereas the other sort of 10, 11 ETFs, they have been buying and selling quite substantially. But I just found it was quite interesting that actually, according to this article at least, less than 50% are in this for the long haul. So yeah, it says here, rather than reflecting a broad-based institutional adoption, the buying and selling of Bitcoin ETFs is primarily driven by funding rates, so basis rate opportunities, with many investors focusing on short-term arbitrage rather than long-term capital appreciation. It goes on to kind of talk about referencing sort of the carry trade and what happens there with the US dollar versus the Japanese yen. But it doesn't go into too much detail about that. But as I say, quite interesting that comes out, especially as I like to use the Bitcoin ETF and BlackRock as the canary down the coal mine, see whether or not we need to drop out. And you can look at Fidelity's second largest, outside of Grayscale, second largest ETF holder, almost 3 solid weeks of selling there. The rest of them, if they're not selling, they just generally haven't been buying. But BlackRock, the one I've been running to, typically continuing to buy throughout this. We have seen some red days. Yesterday was a red day. Today kind of looks like it might be a red day. We don't really get the data until a little bit later on. But we have seen that, there was like 6 or 7 transactions of BlackRock sending 300 BTC each time to Coinbase, around about 1,800 Bitcoins to Coinbase. Whether or not that's going to make a huge difference in the grand scheme of things, I don't know. They're still going to have 584,000 Bitcoin in their bank balance. So for me, until that system breaks, kind of looks like we're okay. And just in case, people aren't, I would really start to be concerned if we were seeing 2 or 3 weeks of solid red sells within the BlackRock. But until then, just kind of feels more like an accumulation phase. And you've also got to remember that, you know, the Bitcoin they're buying is sort of a representation of the IBIT share, which investors can choose to buy and sell. And maybe some have got spooked and have just been deciding to sell, but it doesn't feel like the overall narrative, at least from BlackRock, is that. And then, you know, just to pile on to our woes, and I don't think this is anything new for us, but ECB, well, an advisor with the ECB, doesn't even say who they're from. They don't believe there's any real economic need to carry out strategic Bitcoin reserves, which I know have been a flavor of the month for ourselves since Trump got into office. You know, one of the sort of, you know, the golden eggs that we were looking forward to sort of kickstart this next run within the bull market was a strategic Bitcoin reserve from the United States. Well, the ECB at least are saying, hey, there's no reason behind that. It's too volatile. It's not proved itself as a stable enough asset. It's too young. It's a bit of a risky idea. They're parking the bus and saying, nah, we're all right. Thank you very much. So I don't think we were expecting anything different from Europe, but any, you know, immediate knee-jerk reaction from that. You know, we haven't even seen the United States as a whole, as a country, prove a strategic reserve. We know that some states are doing it, although, again, I think a few have actually been rejected in the last week or so, but I don't think there's too much of an issue with that right now. We want to see how they'll deal with that from a national level rather than a state level. And then this, I posted this in Discord earlier on today, not the article, but we actually have finally done it. We've got there. We are now in extreme fear territory. The fear and greed index, down here, we finally hit, I say finally, we've actually hit 25. So yesterday we were nearly at 50. We've dropped away. Last month we were almost in extreme greed. So in the space of 30 odd days, we have gone from one end of the spectrum to the other. Not usually a space we would associate, or a sentiment we would associate with a resting off period within a bull market, but we're here nonetheless. The article goes on to kind of say that the main driver behind that is the uncertainty that's been caused by President Trump reigniting yesterday the call for tariffs on Canada and Mexico. He's saying that they are going to happen. They're going to happen on time and on schedule, which I think makes it the 1st of March, or is it the 1st of April? Can't remember which way round it is, but fairly new. And the markets generally across the board, traditional as well, have not really taken that news as a positive one, because it's likely going to start a trade war unless there's some concessions that are made by Mexico and Canada. I don't necessarily see Trump backing down, at least in the short term. And that level of uncertainty, what's going to do is what is driving the whole of the traditional markets. Whether or not that's a flee to more stable assets like gold, bonds, whatever, or just sort of deciding that maybe time's to take a little bit of profit. And whilst that being said, yes, the Nasdaq and the S&P have pulled back. Let me try and find the S&P as well. I mean, when you zoom out on the weekly, still climbing fairly high. We have just made a new all-time high 2 weeks ago, a week and a half ago, finding ourselves just pulling back. But we haven't really lost any major support on the S&P, Nasdaq as well. You know, yes, it's at the lower part of what we've seen for the last 6 months in terms of this trend line, but not that way. We'll do it like this. It's not really broken anything yet. And for me, you know, we're going to want to get really worried. I think, you know, losing sort of 20,300, that top in and around here, maybe we might start to see some sort of a pullback. It's not that far away. I appreciate that. Maybe that's where we could start to have a look at it. But other than that, I think you're going to have to go all the way down to about 18,000 and sort of this level here. Let me just delete those drawings and draw that again. Sort of that level around there. You know, pull back down to there. Maybe we lose that level. We can start to worry. But, you know, we could fall all the way back there and just climb back up, much like what we did in sort of the end of July 2024, which was the unwinding of the carry trade, for those of you that remember that. Let's get that off. One thing I do want to just point out with sentiment, because sentiment absolutely is in the toilet. Let's face it. You go in Discord and engagement's down. You go on YouTube, everyone's talking about, bear market blues and the, tops being in, and you go on crypto Twitter if you even dare. And, there's people begging, I don't know, obviously facetiously, but begging people to stop selling, trying to outlaw short selling, etc. Trying to come up with any excuse they can to understand why Bitcoin is potentially falling off. But I do want to draw your attention to sort of like a graphical representation of the fear and greed index, because this is us on the very far right. We've just hit that 25. So we've gone back into extreme fear. Now, typically in bull markets, in and around tops, we don't really get here. The last time we were down here was in the summer, which you could argue we were still on our leg up in the bull market. Matter of fact, we were right at the end of the 8 months of ranging that we saw from March to September. And we got down to 20, I think it might have even been 18, after the unwinding of the carry trades in Japan, beginning of, it started at the end of July, and then it really culminated on Monday, the 5th of August, if I remember correctly, where the markets dropped massively down, and we saw that. But, we get down here, it does bounce back up. However, it's generally not somewhere that we want to find ourselves hanging around, because when we are down sub 30 for any serious length of time, they've always typically been associated with bear markets. So, yes, it's fine to come back down here. Matter of fact, as we get on to, seeing this quote banded around quite a lot today. Warren Buffett's old, be greedy when others have fear, be fair when others are greedy. Well, you know what? Now maybe is the time to be greedy, because people are being fearful. And so that's fine. Get down here, drive the fear down, drive the sentiment down. And if you have an opportunity to, if we are genuinely still in the bear market, and the fact that I have to even caveat that with an if, anyone that has the opportunity to buy at these levels is likely going to look back in, 6 months or so and say, that was a great opportunity to buy. And I feel that is probably where we sit with that. Now, it's not just about, and I've harked on about this for, the best part of 6 weeks. I think every week I've given altcoins a bit of a kicking this year. And I stand by the fact that actually, all altcoins are no longer born equal. And we need to bear that one in mind. So, yes, if today marks the bottom, it may feel like that's the ideal time to jump back into, a splattergun effect of altcoins and ride it up a 20x rather than just sitting with Bitcoin and getting a 2 or a 3x. But we see this article only came out a few hours ago from CryptoQuant CEO. So we use CryptoQuant quite a bit for having a look at sort of charting, etc. And he's come out and said, actually, you know what? Most altcoins aren't going to make it. I don't think that's a new statement. I think it's quite clickbaity. If there's 22 million altcoins out there, we know most of them aren't going to make it. But actually, when he goes into the article and he's kind of looking at the top 200, and he's saying, actually, most of the top 200 aren't going to make it. What he means by it's not going to make it is we're unlikely to even see them recovering their all-time highs had they been around in the previous bull market. Or, as he goes into the article, and I can't remember where it is down here, I think it's 24% of the large, down here, 24% of the largest 200 cryptocurrencies, the top 200, have fallen to below the lowest levels in the last 365 days. So last 365 days, Bitcoin's gone from, 25,000 all the way up to 108,000. And obviously it's sitting right now about 88,000. What we're saying here is in that same period, most altcoins, some altcoins have gone to whatever height they've gone to and then fallen all the way back down to where they were pretty much at the beginning of 2024. So just sort of saying that here we are a year later, Bitcoin has still managed to maintain round about a 4x, and yet altcoins that are supposed to have an even better chance of sort of bringing in bigger returns have just round tripped. They're just where they were 365 days ago. And so he goes on to talk about, well, actually what we need to think about is which altcoins are likely to perform. And I don't think there's anything earth-shattering in this, but potential ETF approvals, there's a play to be had there, even if it is just buy the rumor, sell the news. Sustainable attention drivers and narrative, and we know we're focusing on the AI kind of sector. Some are looking at real world assets, and I still do stand by that certain memes probably have some longevity to to stand with. And then revenue generating projects. We've got to be careful with that. A lot of us have PTSD from rebasing DAOs, but if there's a sensible ROI or APY that can be achieved, and I know that a lot of exchange tokens are doing that at the moment. And okay, exchange tokens like BitGet, we see that's down quite bad today, but actually exchange tokens have done quite well over the past 6 weeks or so, certainly far better fared than other altcoins, and that's because a lot of them are offering, APY and staking returns for just staking their token on their platform, etc. So something to consider. And I'm not going to go into it in too much detail because I want to move on to pricing. But just for those of you that are wondering which altcoins are waiting ETF approval, we've got ADA, Solana, XRP, Litecoin, HBAR or Hedera, Dogecoin, and actually Polkadot, which amazingly is up today. But yeah, Polkadot is also recently had some ETF applications made. There's 2 others, meme coin related, Trump and Bonk. I don't think any of those 2 are going to make it. Certainly not Trump with its price action at the moment. But that's where we sit with that. Don't think there's anything that's been mentioned there. I just want to get into some price action. So let's have a look at BTC. Be interesting to see what Trump is saying, because everything does seem to be moving up at the moment. And someone mentioned in chat that he was talking this afternoon. But what I would also say is that it's been a hell of a strong fall. And this is a 12-hour chart we can see at the moment. But if you were looking on the 1 hour, dare you even go any lower, the fall has been pretty aggressive. So we'll talk about range later, but seeing a bounce at the moment does not surprise me. But as we look at the 12-hour chart, I don't really need the EMAs on. I'll just get rid of those. A bit confusing. There we go. What do we have? We had this unusual pattern, really, for probably the best part of, 2 weeks. If I just put it on the daily, it's very sort of static price action. Bitcoin's ranging $2,000, 1,000 either way, of sort of like 96 for an awful long time. Anyway, we finally got to the point where exhaustion came about, and we've had this falling through. And we talked last week about the grayed out box at the moment, but these were the liquidity zones in and around the 618 fib level, and that's exactly what it's targeted. And it ate through that through an entire candle, and then it's come back down, and we've started to see it attacking sort of that 87,000 to 84,000 liquidity range right now. So it's maybe halfway through it. This is not, just under halfway through that there. So still potential for that to sort of come back through. Technically this is now looking more like that if we were to draw it after this. But what is interesting is it's come back down to this fib level, and we have seen an initial bounce away from that. So starting to see a little bit of life, especially as it's actually attacked that twice. So maybe that sort of 86, what did it get down to? 86,100. So maybe that 86,300 level is showing some sort of buying pressure down there. I think people have maybe had enough of the falling, but it also ties in, if you can just look over to this side with where my head was, with the shelf of price action in and around there. And so again, price action just helping us maybe find some form of I don't know if it's going to be short term. I wish I did. But some sort of relief, at least for the time being. But what I do find interesting, and there's something in this, is Bitcoin has fallen an incredible amount over the last few days. And that's not necessarily fair. Maybe it's been, 10%, it's fallen 12% over the last 3 or 4 days. But there hasn't really, and I agree with this sentiment, there hasn't really been a major negative news announcement related to Bitcoin. Yes, okay, there was the hack, but it was Ethereum, wasn't Bitcoin. And Ethereum held up pretty well initially. So I don't necessarily count that. It was 1.5 billion, which is an awful lot of money, I get it. But Bitcoin trades 800 billion in a 24-hour period. So not really sort of measuring with the same yardstick there. And so I do stand, I agree with this. Manipulation. We have seen rumors abound that the likes of Binance, Bybit, Kraken, they're selling off their selling off their Bitcoin, their Ethereum, their Solana, and they sell it off at prices. The theory behind it is that they sell whatever price it is. Yes, okay, the price drops, it goes down, but it cascades into, you know, a much larger sell-off like what we've seen over the last 24 hours. And then we've got the likes of, excuse me, Binance and these major exchanges just being able to buy that back at a lower price. That's kind of how this works. That's how market makers move the markets as well. And I can completely see that as a logical reason as to why prices moved. And I go back to here, this price action where it just sort of stayed static. It was suppressed for, you know, a couple of weeks at a time, which I think is sort of another opportunity for market makers, just suppressing that price, you know, kind of almost getting to a point where there's just lethargy from retail, and then there's that sharp move back down. And I would not be surprised, I said it in Discord earlier, potential V reversal on the cards. So let's just see how these candles go. I'd be interested to see how Asia picks up when they open up in the wee hours of this morning, tomorrow morning, I suppose, and we'll take it from there. But if we have a look at the good old market maker charts that I do, and I've kept this on the weekly. Of course, we're going to go on to the lower time frame, but something we've not done in a while. We used to draw this pattern all the way through 2023, and we've not looked at it. And we started with this W down at the bottom. So rise 1. Yeah, so that's a 1. We have rise 2, consolidation. What if this is rise 3? Yeah, what if that there, if I can do it, was rise 3, and what we're currently in at the moment is an area of consolidation. Now that would mean, you know, with market maker theory, manipulations we're talking about, with 3 rises up, we have an M formation, double top, whatever you want to call it, 3 rises back, 3 drops down. And I'm not necessarily calling this a moment, I'm just putting it on the radar that maybe actually what we're seeing is the left side of an M formation. And actually, you know what? It's not totally out of the woods, because, let me just get rid of these again. You know where that pattern is, but let's zoom in a bit closer. Because at some stage, we know that, if we're 4-year cycle believers, purists like we are, we're going to see a blow off top at some stage. Whether it's like 2017, it's a single top, or it's going to be 2021 with a double top. This may be looking more like a double top M formation, because we've got this move up. We don't know how far it's going to go down, but at some stage we're going to expect another move back up, and then it's going to go. Now, you know, I've just arbitrarily drawn this, but you know, if you're using the same sort of 3-4 month period here, and you had sort of 3-4 months on from the end of March, April, you're talking July, August for a potential peak. So we're in Q3. And I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility. I appreciate a lot of people are thinking December 1st, Q4, but not everything happens every single time exactly the same way. So this could well be that left-sided thing. I think it's something we just need to consider. You know, we are in that final year of the 4-year cycle, and the weekly chart maybe doesn't, you know, sort of paint a different picture in terms of, it's too soon, that we can't do it. But these are weekly candles here. It's going to take some time to get around there. So I don't know. That could certainly be an error possibility. The box I've marked there was just something which I talked about on Saturday at the Cuddle, with where a lot of indicators were kind of suggesting a market top would be. Now, actually, they kind of range anywhere from about 140 to 340. But for me, I you know, maybe I'm being pessimistic, or I'm just sort of holding it back. But I'm really kind of seeing Bitcoin one more move up. If this is an M formation, yes, it might be a higher peak on the second side of the M, but I don't really see it getting too inordinately large on top of that, because otherwise it's just going to be another move up. So anywhere from sort of, I don't know, 125 to 160,000, I think we could still potentially class that within this sort of M formation. And sort of breaks beyond that, I think it sort of comes into question about whether or not that M is a realistic M, and actually have we got our levels up slightly wrong. So wait and see. We'll see how it goes. In terms of the weekly, you know, that move up, the Trump pump, did leave a lot of you know, vector candles behind. And, you know, we've lost a 20 EMA. We've lost a 10 EMA. We've lost a 20 EMA. You know, it stands to reason that the 50 EMA might be the next leg that we end up having to catch. And okay, that's going to move up through the weeks, but we're kind of looking anywhere from 77 to 80,000. And I don't think, sadly, now we have to talk about it, that we can rule those out carte blanche. No, can't ever get there because we're all too bullish to think about it. Actually, now we need to start to consider where those goes. We know vector candles like to get recovered, although I do accept that on the weekly time frames, some do get left behind. But with us already losing the 10 and the 20, 5 days ago on this candle, I accept that as well. I would certainly be marking off, I don't know, let's call it 77,000 as an area of interest. We're going to look at fibs later, but if I just throw this fib on the weekly, 75,000's at the 50 EMA at the moment. So, makes sense for the 0.5 fib as well there. I don't want to even contemplate the golden ratio 618, but 70,000 takes you back into a lot of that noise from there. So, yeah, unfortunately now we can't deny that they may be players. Dropping it down onto the daily, and look, what have we just bounced from? The 200 moving average. We talk about that a lot. Sorry, my printer's just kicked in. The 50, the 10, the 20, they sort of, because of that static movement, they've just entwined in each other. We've lost it now. We've come down. We have been caught. We have caught the 200 EMA quite nicely there. Almost taking us down to this vector candle low, certainly the blue vector candle down there. But again, there's still a bit of room to go. So yes, a relief bounce from the 200 EMA, absolutely. If we're being realistic, what would we like to see for some sort of stability? Probably another retest of that, and then finding some legs to bounce back up. Again, where's that? I'll come back to fibs later. Let's just drop this down onto the 4 hour now. We're starting to see this move that sort of manifested itself over the last few minutes, and it's starting to move back up. But, as exciting as, well, not exciting, but as positive as that move back up is, look what we've got to get through. The 10 is currently set at 90,000, roughly. 200, the daily open, the 20, the 50, and even the 200. There's a lot on the 4 hour, a lot of noise for us to get through. This fall over the last 24 hours has taken us away even from the 10 EMA. So, reality is that a move back to here would be perfectly normal before we move back down. So I always want to come on these calls and be fairly optimistic with what I see. We've had the move down. We can't deny that it's not happened. What we need to see in terms of optimism, I think, is a breakthrough this, find some area of consolidation, maybe even around the daily open, and then try and make another move back up. The move has been so sharp through Asia and UK and America today that I actually wouldn't rule out that V reversal that we talk about. Might not be as straight as that, but it might sort of V reversal and take us back through. There's a lot of vector candles here, just areas for that to take through. And as I said, we're at 25. This is the time of fear, the time if we have opportunities to buy that we need to grab them. So certainly looking at those sort of things. And then just take Bitcoin back on the weekly. And I wanted to do this just to sort of, draw our attention to it, how much of a drop it has been over the last few weeks. And do we really need to panic? So I think sometimes we need to remind ourselves of where it is. So just measuring. So this is the fib. So I've done the fib again. That's what I did. I remember when I posted in Discord earlier today, cheating a little bit, knocking it onto the linear. Then actually the 200 EMA on the daily actually ties in with the 382 at just above 85,500, 86,000 where we got to. So another sort of element there, but I usually use it on the log, so let's stick with that there. Let's get rid of this fib now, don't need it. What I've done is I've got 20 and 50 EMAs there, and then I've gone for one halfway in the middle as well, so 35 EMA. I've left them as EMAs. I put just simple moving averages as well, but I didn't use those in the end. And I was just trying to sort of see how far we've come down. So this bottom at the moment, all the way from the market top 108,000 down to the bottom that we've seen today, 86,000, is only a 22% drop. Something that we see all the time. pullbacks in bull markets. So it feels worse because 22% when you're over 100,000 is far worse than 22% when you're only at 3,000, just from the actual amount of zeros that you're looking at. But the actual percentage amount is exactly the same. So that did take us through the 21 EMA, which we've got the 35 here and the 50. So having a look at how far these can go. Well, if it does make it all the way down to that 35, and you'll see why that's important in a moment, then we're talking around about 25%. So not much further from what we've seen already, but 25%. Seen those in the last bull run plenty of times. And then if it makes it down to the 50, then we're looking at a 30%, 31%. So yes, okay, we may get those. It's going to hurt. I just don't open your Delta app. But getting down to there is not necessarily the end of the market. We've seen even in this cluster in and around last year, we tried to hold the 21 one best we can. But look, that 35 actually caught us plenty of times. And every time it broke, the one thing that did end up catching us then was a 50. So we have lost this, still got 5 days to go, so let's not say we've lost it yet. But we are currently trading below the 21 EMA. So if we do close below that, I know there could be a good chance that that is the level that we end up touching before resuming. Certainly, even in this bull market, that has been a thing. Don't think you can really count those there because they're just all on top of each other. And this bit, we were just getting out of the mess of the bear market. But if we go back to 2021 bull run, and you have a look at some of these. So this one down at the bottom, this one down here to start off with. So this took us from 12,000 down to just under 10,000. That was a 21% pullback on a bull run before we made that, ranging period before, up, ranging period again, drop back down. 21%, I don't even think there was too much uproar about that because from 12,000 to 10,000 just didn't really feel too bad. We climb all the way up and we had, basically just no chill throughout sort of Q4 in 2020. We get to 42,000, let's say. We crash all the way back down to, 29,000, 32% price drop. We recovered from it. We still managed to make another leg up. And then similarly, even when we were at or nearing the peak, we got up to 59,000 with a little bit of change, move all the way back down, and we get to 43,000, another 26% price drop. So these things, they do happen. They can be unsettling. It just feels a whole lot worse this time around, just because of the amount that we're dealing with. And we're of the idea that we can only go up. I fall for that too. We all do. We can only go upwards. And if upwards is not the way in which it's going, even ranging is quite difficult for us, then we feel it. Now, I accept that a 20% fall on the price of Bitcoin is far worse in terms of how that manifests itself on altcoins. Just looking at the amount of green that's turning around at the moment, there does seem to be some strong recovery with the altcoin market, which is great to see. Sellers exhaustion, which is where we want to be. We just got to make sure that the buying can sustain itself. We'll have a look at the altcoins in a moment there, but I don't think that's too much of a bad sign in terms of what we've just dealt with there. Absolutely. This was, I think it was James that mentioned it in Discord about this double top, and it is, that is now a clear double top that we've seen there. So I was just sort of wanting to draw it out that if that was the case, probably gonna have a neckline, I don't know, maybe there. That kind of takes up the best amount of bodies and wicks. We have broken through it. What would we expect to happen now? We'd expect a Kobo of some sorts before that move back down. Where does that move back down potentially take us to? Down to around about 75, which is this kind of level of activity and price action from sort of the tops and the shoulders down here. So if we were to experience that full drop, which let's hope we don't, that's where we could see ourselves. I think, for me, yes, we could experience that. Where do we get to the point where we have to concede that the bull market is over? I think it's when we start breaking below that and heading down. I think until then, we have to give the market an opportunity to see where it's going to go. And if we just, let's see, where were we doing that fib? I can't remember, September. I mean, yeah. So that was what we were talking about before with the golden ratio, that's 618. I mean, we don't want it to retrace down to the 618, but unfortunately, it's sitting quite nicely on that previous block of price action there. So a nice bounce off this one, as we said. Retest up to the neckline, maybe even up to this fib level. We really want to then hold this. We want to get back above that Gandalf line and be able to start to build and move upwards from that. A Kobo off this. I really think we're probably going to at least have to talk about the low 80s, which, God forbid, we end up having to do that, because people are going to think I am a perma bear, and I promise you that I'm not. And so, people have been throwing this around as well, which I can see why people on crypto Twitter are using this chart, because there's definitely an argument to be said that not many metrics are suggesting that the bull market has peaked, has topped. I went through that on Saturday with the amount of indicators, on-chain indicators that are good for identifying market tops. None of them are flash that we've got to a market top yet. And so people have kind of, what they've done is they've superimposed the Wall Street psychological cheat sheet guide, or at least the headings from it, onto the Bitcoin chart. Now, this is the Bitcoin chart from 2017. I tell you, my charting knowledge in terms of just previous chartings is unrivaled. I really do spend far too much time looking at these charts, but that to me seems to be what it is. That sort of move up from sort of like 3,000 pullback here, and they've added this thing bear trap, and I think it's just to try and seem like, look, we have these moves up, we've had strong moves up, we're going to have times where it's going to pull back. Bear traps are inevitable, and I can certainly see that. What I would say is I think this is probably a little bit of a coping mechanism for now, as much as I agree with it, because the actual Wall Street cheat sheet doesn't have a bear trap on it. Okay, so we've got to think, well, where are we on this? And it's just, don't forget this, the price bars don't have to match this. Okay, so what did we have? We had the Trump pump. Okay, took us up to the new all-time high, 108. Everyone was euphoric. We pulled back a little bit. We tried to retest it. We got complacent. Then, we ranged sideways for a bit, and anxiety picked in. We started to retest that 92 level quite a bit, in my opinion, but we were in denial. Then the market's crapped itself. We've gone down to 86,000, and I feel we're here. Panic, anger, and depression a little bit. I think that's where it's coming. And on the shorter term, I'm not saying this is now taking us straight into a bear market. I'm just saying from where we are in terms of our current position within this cycle, this was the lead up to the euphoric phase. Come back down, we've got complacent with another move up here. We've got into here, we're in sort of, confusion, denial that this is going horribly wrong. We've fallen away. Now we're angry and depressed. I think that's where we are. And if this is anything to go by, then we should start to see that freshen out, and we should start to see that picking up. And as I say, as we're talking at the moment, prices at least moving in the right direction. 15 minutes before the call, it was 86,000. We're now at 88,000. So as I say, I don't know what Trump's saying, but it seems to be working quite well. So just bear that one in mind. I kind of more feel like this bear trap is that feeling there, and then we're going to go back into this side again, momentum building, etc. My opinion on that, but don't think that the chart has to look like that for us to do it. Just someone's just superimposed a generic element of bar charts, price action, onto this cheat sheet. I mentioned about market tops. For those of you that weren't there at the cuddle, I gave a presentation just on sort of on-chain top indicators and bottom indicators, and what has worked in the past, so what we can try and determine what we could look at as potential future. There is now a live Google sheet, which is this here. It's pinned in the Avenger chat on Discord. Just go in there. You can even then just end up, if you want to see what that one is, you can just click on it and it'll take you to the right page. Well, it should do. There we go. And then you can have a look at it, and you can have a look at them yourselves and understand it. You can copy yourselves, add to it. I put all that effort into it, and then there is already something like this on CoinGlass. which is interesting. So this I've saved. Someone mentioned to me at the cuddle, it's Tim, I don't know if he's on the call, that perhaps like, I know once a month we can go through some of the on-chains at a very high level and just see whether or not we're getting close to any of them sort of flashing that we are getting close to the top. And so they've listed 30. I'm not going to go through all 30 because I don't know what half of them are, like the Smithsonian's forecast, not heard of that before. But this is just an opportunity. In fact, for those of you that are interested in saving it in your bookmarks yourself, I'll just put that in chat. There you go. And you can have a look at it. But yeah, I'll have this and we can kind of just see whether or not we're getting close to some of these indicators. We won't look at it every week. And I don't suggest, as I mentioned on Saturday, that you even need to look at it every day or every couple of weeks. You'll get an idea of when we're getting closer. But this here just gives a flavor of which ones, in my opinion, work best. And it's kind of ordered at the moment. You'll see stock to flow and power law pretty poor. But that's because they're just estimates. Anyway, right, let's get on to some altcoins. I'll have a quick drink. I'll start. Sorry, I'm dribbling everywhere. I'll start with Bitcoin actually. I'm going to go on the smaller time frames. Let's get rid of this. Let's get rid of these for now. These are the levels we talked about last week, which you can see. Sadly, we lost. Let's get on to the 1 hour because I want to see what's happening here with it. Okay. So again, this is this unusual kind of, well, this is the weekend. You see how like we had that huge drop off and then the weekend. And it's almost like someone just switched Bitcoin off for the weekend. We started up on Sunday night and obviously the traditional markets, because this fall off on the NASDAQ kind of happened at the end of America, end of the US session, New York, whatever you want to call it. And I've said to people on Saturday, I want to see how Asia reacts. And this is how Asia reacted. And it's just sort of fallen away. And we've just used this 10 EMA. I know it's on the hourly. I know some of you don't like using that. We've just perfectly each time hit it. We've broken it in the bow, but we're 10 minutes to go. This is pushing back down. But I wouldn't be surprised if after a while we at least try and make a way, maybe not this hour, maybe the next hour, back to the 200, sorry, not 200, the 20 EMA for a test there, because we haven't touched it in this whole move down. So you can imagine all of that sell pressure. We must be incredibly oversold, as a matter of fact. Let's have a look at the RSI. Yeah, I mean, we've been oversold now for pretty much all of today. We're finally starting to find some, but only over this last hour we've broken back into some sort of nominal level. But yeah, all of that seller exhaustion finally playing it. I think we might see some sort of relief rally. What we need for that relief rally to happen though is for it to stick. And actually, again, we will put this on the 5 or the 15. There are some clear blocks here. We think, well, drop 1 consolidation, drop 2 consolidation, drop 3. Well, let's just put it on the 15. See what we see. Oops, we don't need the RSI anymore. So what are we thinking? Like drop 1 consolidation, drop 2 consolidation, drop 3. Maybe this is it now. We're running into the 50 EMA on the 15 minute. Want to see maybe another side and then that move up. That move up maybe tying in with Asia, them opening the market and really moving that price back up for a V-shaped reversal. That'd be nice to see. Not sure I want to stay up till 1 a.m. or whenever it is for that to open, but for any of you that are based in America, then you've got an opportunity to potentially take advantage of that. Right, we'll leave Bitcoin there. I want to get onto Tau, and I want to get onto a more normal time frame. Okay, the daily. So Tau, I mean, playing funny buggers with us again, really, isn't it? What have we been doing for the past few weeks with Tau when we find trend line? Was this. And that was a beautiful trend line. And we've been working that quite nicely with sidesteps and buying back in. And then I got caught the wrong side of it, sidestep at 420, and it went flying all the way up. And there were so many times I wanted to get back in, but I was just conscious that it just didn't seem right, and I didn't. I've now bought 25% of that pot back at 354 something. I want to buy more, but I didn't. But can you see this trend line we've been using? We've broken up, but we've actually come back down. And as it stands at the moment, 4 hours to go till the close of the day, looks like quite a nice Kobo, to be honest with you. So it's not a bad position for BitTensor to find itself in, and also it would be another higher low. So again, fairly good move, something to expect, as we were breaking out of this trend. Let's get rid of that. We talked about this trend last week, there. It was inevitable that this was going to come back down at some stage. And the fact that it's found here, close here. If it closes like this, and I will just, if I'm up at 1 minute past midnight, buy back in, because we've had that sort of confirmation. Be nice to see another couple of candles go that way, but I think I'd just take the risk then. I don't want to round trip it back to 422 where I got out and not take advantage of at least buying some extra things. But it's done well. The other thing to note is this orange line. I don't know why I've done it in orange. Horrible color and also really thin. But this sort of previous price support line goes to the tops that we had over the summer. We've come back down. We've pretty much retested that today. So again, another fairly good indicator that we might have actually seen at least a temporary bottom. And if you remember what I drew back here, that's why it worked quite nicely. This channel here, those two lines, it's working quite nicely, just changing its momentum profile. What we really need to see, though, when we go back onto this one, is a genuine attack and clearing of that 500 level. Let's get I'm going to find the right thing for it. There we go. So it's 500 there. So I don't know what's wrong with my colors, but we've come into that zone 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times. In the last 7 times we've come into that sort of like 480 to 500 zone. We've been rejected quite strongly from it. So there's some sell pressure around that 500 level. We've got to break through that. And if we want to keep this trend alive with higher highs and higher lows, really the next time we go up, we have to do that. Now, that's on the daily, all looking good. I did post this, and I don't normally use the 12-hour, but it was just on the close. That move up there just didn't quite get to the previous move here, so it wasn't quite a higher high. And then you could argue now, well, that's it failing. What we are seeing, though, which is quite nice, is some sort of clearance above this one. So if this can move up a little bit more, let's say get back above 400, clear some this mess of EMAs here, or at least back to the daily open, then I think we can at least say we've got some higher lows forming continuing on the 12-hour. But I haven't previously used the 12-hour, so it's me again cheating a little bit to try and just show that we haven't quite got out of this range. And don't forget, just as I look over to the right hand side, I mean, BitTensor has fallen quite a lot in the last few days. And again, whilst I'm doing this, we had this discussion about sell pressure. So it's fallen 30% in the last 5 days, 4 days since Friday. Yes, 12-hour candle, that's why. So yeah, pretty big amount of fall thing. And we talked about on Friday, everyone's selling their Tau, free stake Tau. I don't think that's it. I honestly don't. I get completely the thought process behind fundamentals. Fundamentals help projects on a longer term. For me, TA is very short term. So that's what I'm always going to trust. And even if you sell 7,200 Tau a day at 400, just for easy maths, you're only talking about $3 million worth of Tau being sold. The 24-hour period of Tau trading was 426 million. It's not even 100th of what that. So the selling of Tau, I don't think is what is the sell pressure here. I think it's just part of the whole market movement. Altcoins aren't doing that great at the moment. Bitcoin hasn't been doing that great. That's what's causing it to fall. So, whilst we can do TA on this, it feels to me like altcoins are going to do their thing based on Bitcoin dominance. But if Bitcoin's going to fall or if Bitcoin's going to rally, it might lift them temporarily. Not to the 20x's, you've got to be quite selective with your altcoins there. And I do think the fundamental things of detail, I do think the sector it's in AI, decentralized AI computing, all that kind of stuff, I think is going to help BitTen to get to, you know, a very good return through the bull market. But yeah, we go on to just some lower ones. Again, I don't think there's anything new being talked about here. With just where it's going, very much similar. We've had that big sell-off. We've left some vector candles here. The guy's updated his indicator today, and I don't really like the colors. I might go through and change some of these. Looks a bit too orangey, that red vector, but there's definitely some red vectors, you know, in and around the daily open, which I think could be a target to re-attack. But even on the 4 hour, we've just moved away from the 10 EMA. So I would not be surprised for a retest in and around back here, but we've got to do something with it. We can't fail when we get to this, or we're in for trouble. That's, you know, that's my honest opinion with it. Neuralink, Ondo, all the same. Let's have a look at Ethereum. I mean, Ethereum's just fall away. Feels a lot more, you know, a lot steeper than Tao's just was. But, you know, again, similar to what we saw with Bitcoin over the weekend, we had that huge fall away. We did have it fall a little bit further than most, but it recovered it quite well. Just because Ethereum was in the news, everyone was panicking. But once, I do think Bybit, in terms of damage control, the way they handled that was the best you possibly could. You know, didn't switch off withdrawals. They allowed everyone to withdraw all of their Ethereum. I think 99.8% of withdrawals for Ethereum were made within the time frame that is expected using the Ethereum network. They were upfront about it all, and I think they, you know, that handled that so much better than I think other exchanges have handled hacks before. They were quite clear. They were back 1-to-1, and I think people that have lost it have started to get that repaid back. Now, but then we had what Bitcoin did. It just sort of switched off for a while. Now, this does kind of look a bit like a bear rectangle, doesn't it? And all that's happening is we're going to drop through here, which is what we have. And there was another quite steep drop. And then for me, I've said it plenty of times before, Ethereum has just not done it compared to a lot of other altcoins this cycle. You know, not got back to its all-time high. Matter of fact, it's the same price of was back at the FTX hacks 2 years ago. So going back to altcoins with good narratives, you know, this one hasn't done it. It has an ETF as well, but it hasn't done it. So we've had that fall through. But actually looking at the TA side of things, we've had that come up. We're back at the daily open, which happens to time with the 10 EMA. We've recovered this red vector candle now. That's why it's disappeared. We've got this one within our sights up to 2,600, which would take us to the 50 EMA. I think that's probably a reasonable assumption we can get there, particularly as Bitcoin's still got, you know, a couple of thousand to get back to its 10 EMA, which is respectively another 50% point of that vector recovery zone. So I can see Ethereum actually, if Bitcoin does decide to make that move up, continue its move up, maybe recovering all the way back past the daily open to sort of that close to that 50 EMA, taking out that vector candle. And then again, it's going to be what it does in and around there. Solana's another interesting one. So we know where Solana's been in terms of, let's just get on the daily, issues with sort of memes and the news that came out within the manipulation. We've seen about the FTX unlocking of the memes. We talked about last week. About unlocking of Sol. We also know about the amount of additional Sol, another 5% over the next 2 months of Sol coming onto the markets. And we've had that sell pressure, and it's come quite clear. Yesterday, you know, so last call, we were hugging the 618. We've lost it yesterday. We've come careering down through that. We didn't quite get down to this one or these wicks. So I talked last week about, you know, 120, 110 might be where we see this actually end up going all the way down. So far, we've seen a bit of a recovery at the moment, and the speed in which this fell through yesterday, I couldn't believe it, actually, because I didn't really look at Sol yesterday. But when I switched on my PC today, Sol was like at 133 or something. So I wouldn't be surprised to see some sort of recovery at a minimum of sort of maybe to about 155 level, taking 50% of that vector candle just because of the rate this thing fell away. But I don't think the selling pressure is done from Solana. I think whether it is exchanges manipulating by selling it so they can get it at lower prices, or it is everything that's coming with FTX, or it is You know, just that sort of, I know, almost, I was going to say carte blanche, it's not the word I'm looking for. Like just giving up lethargy in and around meme coins, and so Solana's not being used as much. I'm not too sure. But for me, Solana is kind of, in my opinion, it's kind of the NVIDIA of, bear with me with this analogy, it's kind of the NVIDIA of crypto. Not because it's AI or has actually got any use case, but this thing, you know, during the start of the bull market climbing out, you know, from 8 cents to $300, being the big boy that it is, I feel it really carried the altcoin market on its back. And so with this now selling away, and again, you know, revisiting levels that it was at a year ago it was at 130. So, you know, again, round tripping from 300 or 130 to 300 and back down to 130 again inside a year. It's kind of wild. But if this thing does continue to stumble, it may have a knock-on effect. And I say that with NVIDIA. NVIDIA's got their earning call tomorrow. So still, you know, despite everything, it's still in and around its all-time highs. Not fallen all the way back down to where DeepSeek was, but it's got its earnings call tomorrow night. And if that ain't the earnings call, if we start to see, you know, that it isn't going to be getting positive earnings, and I think previous earnings have been like 400%, 300%, 180%, still in the positive, still above expectations. But if we start to see that it's not because they got a problem with Blackwell or whatever that chip's called that they will roll out, or the tariffs are going to impact sales in the Far East, or, you know, the ramifications of the likes of DeepSeek, etc., are going to affect it. If that earnings call tomorrow isn't great, I can see that, one, affecting the traditional markets because it has been carrying the traditional markets, but two, because it's just so synonymous with AI, it's going to affect the AI tokens and likely the crypto market. So I think it's after the market close, so 9:30 tomorrow is the earnings call. Might be 10 o'clock UK time, 9:30 or 10 o'clock tomorrow. So definitely one just to, if you're wondering why price action moves a little bit, that might be the reason why. Anyway, getting back to crypto. Trump. Yeah. This thing ain't getting ETF approval anytime soon. And you know, it's so strange, isn't it? Because I admit, when I trade, I don't like to hold trades open for a particularly long time. And that's a shame in this one, because I did short this a few times, but it was back in the 50s. Had I have held that one open, what a return it would have been. But, you know, you don't know where that's going to go. But this thing's just heading straight back down. And, you know, we've got unlocks happening in a few months' time for Trump. I think for Melania, the unlocks actually have already started. I'm pretty certain it was only 30 days. And this thing is just continuing to fall away. Price discovery, just in the wrong direction, unfortunately. So I think we can see this coin easily 20 cents in a few weeks' time. So potential opportunity for some shorting there. I don't know if there's anything else from coins I want to look at, but let's have a look at dominance on a bit of a closer chart. So look at this. You know, in the last day, we had that nice move up. Virtuals. I'll have a look at virtuals in a second. Absolutely. So that moved up yesterday, but actually the way altcoins have moved, this is going to have been in the last hour or two, but it's completely recovered that vector candle. There's a smidge of it left. Actually, stand corrected. I thought it had done it. Why is that chart so different to the one I had earlier? So 7 a.m. we peaked. We reached the high of the day with Bitcoin dominance. And then, to be fair, altcoins have actually recovered against Bitcoin every hour almost. So, okay, I'll stand corrected on that one. We need to break that this sort of level, 60.7, or let's just say 60, you know, take into account this here. At the moment, this is just pulling back, strong pullback, but just like what we had here. So ETH BTC is green, okay, and again, from 7 a.m. this morning. So ETH certainly leading the way with that. But when you zoom out, I'm wondering if maybe actually a bit of a bottoming pattern there. Certainly bunching, but now I look at it, is there some argument for a W? What I want to see to prove this W is a strong green vector candle through the 50 EMA and beyond. Okay, that's what we want to see. Okay, might get caught at the 200, fine. Take a respite, retrace, back up. But if we really want to consider that it's broken the back, it's got to get through that 50 EMA. It just doesn't like to break and hold it. So, what did I want to look at? Something made me think, no, I saw that. I wanted to change. I will go back to virtuals. I'm just trying to think. When I was looking at this, there was a chart I wanted to look at because I saw that and I have no idea what it is. But okay. What the hell was it? Oh, I know, yeah. Bitcoin dominance. Back to Bitcoin dominance. Let's go on to the weekly. Might have to do this. I mean, on the weekly, 5 days to go, so we don't count it. But there was definitely that high test there. That was done over a 5-minute chart, that peak. But if this one can close out, there's a bit more substance to it. Someone posted this. And they were talking before altcoins decided to crap themselves. Oh, where was it? It's here. Sort of reaching a level at the moment. There's so much. I'm going to just turn some stuff off here because it's a bit much. Except you don't need to see it all. Try and move that up so you can see it above my head. But let's change the color of this to at least white. So this trend line, remember this Bitcoin dominance, and each time it's hit this, Bitcoin dominance has fallen and alt season has commenced. Well, we've had, look, even last time we hit it here, we had a little mini alt season, end of November. Do you remember that? End of November through December, alt season rallied quite hard with rejection. We're really attacking it here. Now, the more we attack it, people will argue the weaker it becomes. But if we don't break it, we start to fall back down. History has shown us that actually we normally get strong moves from this. So, for those of us that want to think that instead of altcoins are done, like the thumbnail said, because they're falling in the pan, actually altcoins aren't done yet because they do have a second lease of life. Maybe this is it. It's a weekly time frame. We're going to have to wait another couple of weeks to let that one play out. But certainly there. Right, virtuals. So virtuals has been a bit of an interesting one. I mean, weekly's as good as any to start off with, I suppose. Because you're right. Even whenever altcoins today were struggling, virtuals was doing quite well. We've had this huge move up. Beginning of September, it was 2 cents. This thing got all the way up to over $5 in a matter of 4 months. And so, from the weekly point of view, natural to see a pullback. Now, it almost got to the 50% of this vector candle here. But I could see potentially coming still back down. I appreciate it's had some, positivity over the last 24 hours, but you can hardly call it positive when it's gone from $5 to less than $1 inside of 2 months. This thing has had a significant cooling off period. So what we're wanting to try and see, if this is something you want to get back into, is some sort of bottoming pattern. And the candles are certainly getting smaller and bunching together, and we're on the weekly, so we've got to bear that one in mind. Let's drop it down to the daily. The problem with the daily, if I look at it, it's below every single EMA. We don't have an 800 because it's not been around long enough, but 50, 20, 200, 10, it's below them all. And today's positivity was just probably because it had such a bad day last couple of days. So we've been, flashing down, and then we spike back up 20 and 50, flash down 10 catches, flash down the 20 and the 200 catches. We've come back down. We haven't broken anything here. So I don't think there's anything to write home about personally myself in terms of where do we want to take it. I mean, we could take this all the way back to this move at the beginning of September. Have a look here. We've lost that one. I mean, look, the 382 ties in quite nicely with the 50% recovery of this vector candle down here, and also this price action in and around sort of 55 to 60 cents. So my view is still that this is likely probably going to get back down to there. I would argue that if this is something you want to get back into, wait till we get down to this level and then move back up, and only consider that has been, a null and voided if we can break through these 3 EMAs and get above this fib level. We'd still have the 50 EMA to battle, but it's the final one at least. And you know, if you did wait and you got to 140, it's not the best entry compared to now at $1, but there's still plenty of upside to be had from 140 and just being patient and waiting. I think that's the key now, isn't it? Is just not aping in on something. Yeah, there's a potential with virtuals, AI agents, AI related. It's a platform to be able to effectively trade, let's face it, AI meme coins. So, you know, there's some utility to that project. At least it's a marketplace. But I would for me, I'd be waiting. I got out of virtual, so I'm not in it at the moment. That's where we are. I think at an hour and 10 minutes, we'll probably call it there. It's been a bit of an interesting couple of days. Greg, I hope that helped anyway. It's been an interesting couple of days in terms of where it is. I think sentiment's been pretty low. We need a good day tomorrow. That's my opinion. We need a good day tomorrow to just try and restore some faith in where we are. I still stand by buying at this level, even if we end up going further, buying at this level. I don't believe the bull market is over. I've now got to consider whether I'm wrong. I accept that. I don't think I'm wrong though. And so, 22% pullback from all-time highs, perfectly at the end of the month when I look to try and buy some new Bitcoin. So hopefully that lasts for me to the start of next month. But I think buying now is probably a good idea. I would be selective with altcoins if that's what you want to do. Although I know the vast majority of you have got a very AI-focused altcoin portfolio anyway, so you're probably in as good a spot as ever. I think we'll leave it at that. If you've got any questions, obviously, feel free to hit me up in Discord, tag me, DM me, whatever it is you need. I'll be posting, about tomorrow and just seeing how we recover. Hopefully, Asia does its thing and we get some sort of reversal, even if it's just an opportunity to take a breather before we move away. Enjoy the rest of your evening, everyone. Enjoy the rest of your week. Usual trading pub 1:00 on Thursday. Videos will be from the cuddle will be coming out as and when they are available. And once you see mine, if you want to chat about it, then again, feel free. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and I'll speak to you all soon. Cheers now.